It's time now for the Jock and the Doc, your Bay Area sports report on the Northern California Sports and Entertainment Network. Here are your hosts, Glenn and Dave.
Well, welcome into Tuesday, the Jock and the Doc, the morning show. It's a double shot of morning sports. How are you, David?
It's a good one. Monday night, a good Monday nighter to watch last night. Kirk Cousins surprised me. I was very doubtful on yesterday's program. I thought that I thought there was going to be a big quarterback controversy. Didn't seem like it. Kirk Cousins came through in the clutch, and they beat Philadelphia in Philadelphia. So that's something.
You know, I was taking a look at the Vegas odds. You know what the long shot bet of the day is?
What's that?
It's will I get through a 15-minute segment with you without calling you Eric?
Well, last year it was quite a few times. I just stopped acknowledging it afterwards. But I know you know that you go do quite a bit of other programming with Eric, and I'm a forgotten entity, being kind of on my own a little bit.
Well, you know that happens when you're in the media. You know how many times I've gone on 103.5 Capital FM and said, "Hey, it's 99.9," and go, "No." Anyway, it's Glenn and Dave. This is the Jock and the Doc Morning Show. Happy Tuesday to you. All right, you mentioned it. The Falcons and the Philadelphia Eagles. They're both 1-1. Talk about a game. I thought Philadelphia would be in full control of this game. They looked in decent shape. What a stunner. Comes down to the fourth quarter.
Anytime anybody can go into Philadelphia and pull off a victory, it's a big time. That's definitely a feather in Atlanta's cap. And like I said, Kirk Cousins redeemed himself. I mean, they're paying him basically they backed up the Brinks truck there, and being we've well established the fact that I'm a Minnesota Vikings guy, and other than great personal stats and a couple of playoff appearances, we never really won anything in Minnesota. So I was kind of skeptical because father time is going to catch up to Kirk Cousins soon, and being a good guy and a guy impressive stats and a great team guy and a family guy, as we saw on Peyton Manning series quarterbacks last season. That really didn't mount to a hill of beans in Minnesota. And maybe he'll get something going in Atlanta. It's too hard to tell, but I do know that all the past seasons, him as a Minnesota Viking, I've had my heart broken a lot. So Atlanta Falcons fans, remember that.
Well, Cousins, 20 of 29, 241 yards, couple of touchdown passes, and a key stat, no interceptions last night. But his biggest performance came in the fourth quarter, as I mentioned. It comes down to the fourth quarter, the final rush down the field, and lo and behold, he goes 5 of 6, 70 yards. They score the touchdown, and then they ice it with the big sack at the end of the game. So what did you think of, we break it down. It was 7-6 at the half, and again, I mentioned Philadelphia in control, but a 1-point lead at half. It was a very tightly contested game until we saw the passing from Jalen Hurts. That's when I thought, okay, this guy's going to take it over. But as you mentioned, Cousins is one of those guys, though, Eric, I didn't make it, Dave. Oh, my goodness, I knew I'd do it. Jalen Hurts, he had a big game, but Cousins is that kind of guy. You saw it so often with the Vikings that you just don't know on any given Sunday, in this case, a Monday, what you're going to get from him. Did you expect this kind of a finish, a leadership role with Atlanta?
No. I got to be honest with you. Nope. It's surprising. Like I said, I've had my heart broken for too many seasons, and it was as a Minnesota Viking. So I didn't expect this. Like I said, as the older you get, let's face it. There's what improves with age: cheese, wine, not football players.
No. Now we get a look ahead after the 22-21 stunner last night in Philly. You said you go into Philly, you win a game like that against those rabid fans and the team, you just get out of there quick. Now we look ahead to week number 3. There's the Thursday night game. Let's just briefly, it's Tuesday, so let's just take a quick peek ahead. New England and the New York Jets, they used to be heated rivals. That has fallen by the wayside. Both teams have been as of late. We talked about it on yesterday's show. The quarterbacking has changed both lineups. What do you expect in that Thursday night game as the Patriots head into New York?
I think that we saw something last Sunday with Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. He seemed to click. I mean, last year, game one, guy goes down with injury, didn't see him at all. And then there was all that moaning and groaning in the preseason and the training camps about he wasn't participating. But listen, he doesn't have to participate. He's Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
As much as I do not like anything that's in green, and concluding now the New York Jets because it's just an offshoot of the Green Bay Packers. Again, being a purple guy, you have to give credit where credit is due. The man is an amazing talent, and I do think that a couple of games under his belt now, 1-1. I think they go into the Thursday night, and I think the New York Jets come out on top.
Tuesday morning, Jock Doc morning show with Glenn and Dave Patrician. Good to have you, buddy. And the San Francisco 49ers, they take on the L.A. Rams. Rams 0-2. Not really surprised. Although, news yesterday, Cooper Kupp could be out extended. I said on yesterday's show, we were doing the recap, and I went, they weren't getting the ball to him. I guess it was a little hobbly in that game, and he's going to be out. So what do you expect from the Rams? Because that certainly is the biggest loss they could suffer.
Yeah, like I said yesterday, I think the 49ers loss in Minneapolis was just a blip. And I wouldn't be surprised if they run the table. They're a great football team. And I think this will be one of those total devastation games where if there's an over, always bet the over on this one.
All right. It's going to be a fun weekend. I'll look at ahead. You guys. Actually, we'll talk on Thursday in review of the entire weekend. But, Dave, there are a lot of lopsided games. You got teams like you've got Jacksonville and Buffalo. Ooh, that could get messy. Washington, Cincy. I think Cincinnati is going to bounce back. If you're a gambling man, 0-2, they're overdue for the win. Maybe they can right that ship. There's a lot of games that go south in a hurry. Let's see. Major League Baseball last night. Guess what? Good news. San Francisco Giants, they didn't lose.
No.
It was an off day, however, of course. The Giants have struggled. You said it yesterday. Season's over. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
There was talk yesterday. The Matt Chapman signing, 6-year deal, $151 million recently. And now reports that it wasn't Farhan Zaidi, the general manager, that pulled that deal together. Opening up the purse strings, getting the deal done, was former catcher Buster Posey. So you smell something cooking down there. What are you thinking of the GM duties down there? Could we see an off-season move, Dave?
Yeah, that definitely is out. And anytime you have somebody other than the general manager pulling strings on deals, and that's coming right from the ownership group, so there's something happening there. So let the season coast out, let the changes be made. There's no sense, and maybe just getting good old Buster, getting them a little experience, and you could see that. You always like to see a succession plan, I guess.
Yeah, it's been a strange season. I know when Eric and I do the weeknight edition of Giants Sportstalk Live, the fans in the chat are going absolutely bananas. They've been calling for the guy's head for over a year now, maybe a couple of seasons, and ownership. We just wondered how long that they're going to allow this to continue. The Giants, as mentioned, didn't play last night. There was some action. Let's see, Cleveland, Minnesota. Cleveland a winner 4-3. Minnesota, you're a Viking fan. Are you a Twin fan as well?
I am. I mean, that's my team, being a Manitoba boy. That's 7 hours down the road in Highway I-94, 29 I-94. So, yeah, I've been to Twins games. I've been to watch the Twins take on the Phillies this year, and on a rain-soaked Monday, actually on July 22nd to be exact, and they came through with a big victory. So they're a good team, and, they got a tough division with Cleveland in there, but we'll see what happens as the wild card shakes out.
If you're such a fan, maybe you can relate this to us. We know all too well in the Bay Area what it's like to have a team over in Oakland in the East Bay play Moneyball. Well, what is it about this Minnesota Twins team, Dave? Every single season, they're competitive. Here they are. They're going to make the postseason along with Kansas City in the wild card. What is it about Minnesota baseball? Is it the front office? Is it the ownership? What brings this together each and every year that they have such a competitive outlook?
I think that's what it is. I think it's the definitely the front office. It's the management. It's the ownership group letting the managers manage. I mean, you got a good system. You got your AAA squad right in the same city now with the St. Paul Saints. So I think that there's a lot of it's that synergy, I think, and as much as success as teams do when they sign those multi-zillion-dollar deals with free agents, sometimes it's just not the chemistry. Like, I mean, there's a guy available. This is his individual stats, but you said a key word in there, Moneyball. I mean, if they're looking at stats, they're looking at teams, they're signing guys, they're being responsible about it, and they can field a competitive team. I mean, there's a lot of teams in baseball. Not everybody wins the World Series, but the bottom line is you got to entertain your fans. You got to have a good product on the field, and you got to be close. Like, you just, not every team can win. So as long as you're there and you're giving the fans their money's worth, Minnesota is a hardworking state. Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Twin Cities, hardworking people. They want a hardworking team. That's what they want.
Kind of blue collar. Big game in the National League. The Mets. Starling Marte single in the 10th inning lifted the Mets to a 2-1, very tightly contested matchup win over the Washington Nationals. Now, people might say, oh, what's so big about that? Well, the Dodgers, they blanked the Atlanta Braves 9-0. So, quick look at the National League wild card. The Mets now have a 1-game lead on Atlanta for that final spot. A lot of people, they have differing opinions. Talk to one guy. He says, "Oh, I like old school ball. You win your division, you're in. Less teams means more." For me, Dave, I love having the extra teams. It goes down to the wire. When really would we be scoreboard watching at all? What do you think of the race in the National League? The Mets holding the lead, and what's your thoughts on adding more teams to the baseball race?
You know what? I like it the way it is. I like it the way it is. I love the those 1-game wild card playoff games. I think it's just it's fun. I think that's I don't know. I look at that and teams. They got 32 teams in the National Hockey League and 16 make the playoffs. So what is the 8 months of regular season for just to eliminate half the teams? I think it's way more competitive when you got fewer teams in there and more games become more meaningful. And now I know. In baseball with 162 games, there's teams that are out of it in June, and so be it. But I think that I love when it gets to September, and we talked about this yesterday. I love this time of year. I love the baseball races. I love NFL cranking up. I love NHL training camps and preseason underway. And NBA's right around the corner. The Canadian Football League's going down to the wire with playoffs starting in November. I just love this time of year, and I don't think – I'm a guy that just likes the status quo, and I don't want it to change. I think, when they added wild card teams to baseball, that became, it took me a while to get used to it. But now I love those 1 games. I love those. Okay, the game's going to be on Monday, and then Tuesday the next round starts. So it's either you or you, and you're in.
Yeah, you know what? Eric and I love the fact that we got a little something extra, a little bonus to talk about when the Giants season technically has come to an end. I think they're mathematically alive by 3 games, but we got the Mets at 82-68, Atlanta 81-69. When this is all said and done a week from now, one of those teams gets into the postseason, the other goes home. So it's pretty interesting going down to the wire. Some other games yesterday. Kansas City, they lost to Detroit 7-6. It was Milwaukee over Philadelphia 6-2. Cubs, no trouble with the East Bay Club. Oakland, 9-2. I'm not talking about the Ballers. I'm talking about the A's. They'll probably be in Sacramento anyway next year. There's a change I wasn't expecting. St. Louis, 4-0 over Pittsburgh, and Colorado surprising Arizona, 3-2. It's also that time of the year when those teams that don't have any wins can kind of play the upset Dodgers, if you will. So that is a look at Major League Baseball. We're talking yesterday's show about, and a little bit today, about National Hockey League. David, it's just around the corner. Didn't they just hand out the Stanley Cup to the Florida Panthers? The Rats were running around, and here we go. Training camps getting underway on Thursday. Tomorrow, media day for most clubs. Training camp Thursday. And one thing about hockey, they must be in some peak physical condition because, as I mentioned on Shark Bites yesterday, You've got guys showing up for camp this week. They're dropping the puck for preseason games on Sunday.
Yeah, it's something. It's like you and I have a few years on some of our younger viewers, and we remember when the players in the 70s used to use training camp to get into shape, and now and you see this with kids that are starting, kids that are playing hockey now, and we're talking 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. They're playing hockey year round. Their sports, they play with their teams, and then all of a sudden there's hockey camps and there's tryout camps and there's summer leagues and all this stuff like that. So these guys now, these athletes, and in hockey, because if you ever go to YouTube and Google a game like Chicago Montreal from 1965, hockey players didn't look like athletes back then, and now these guys are absolutely 100% athletes. There's no smoking on the bench. There's no guys sitting around having the big carbon up with the big pasta dinners just before. I mean, these guys are finely tuned athletes with nutritionists and trainers and everything like that. So this is something that when they drop the puck, Winnipeg Jets, my team, are in action Saturday and Sunday against Minnesota Saturday, in Edmonton on Sunday. And you're going to see guys that you probably won't see again. I think Connor Hellebuck is supposed to start on Saturday night for the Winnipeg Jets. But, there's guys.
Surprises me, Eric. Or I did it again. That surprises me that you get your number one goaltender starting the first preseason game. I thought you'd literally see guys who are going to be bagging groceries somewhere in a week's time.
Oh yeah, I often say that when you when they have those sales at in the concourses, and they have they're getting rid of game worn training camp jerseys, and there's guys like Schlabotnik. Who is Schlabotnik? And then Weeb and all these guys. Like, you never heard of these guys before, but you're going to see a few guys. You're going to see a few guys, players. It's not like the NFL preseason when there's 99 guys on the sidelines, because especially road games, they got to limit who they take. But but I want to just spend a little time talking about the Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg Jets, got booted.
By the way, we cover the Bay Area teams. I'll talk a little bit about the Sharks in a minute, but that you like to go near and dear to your heart. They are your club, aren't they? Winnipeg Jets.
Well, I'm looking at your hat. That's a classic hat you got on there.
I wore it for you.
Thank you. But the Winnipeg Jets, and this is funny because as you start to break down the season, you start to talk about it, and people start asking you questions. Jets were just absolutely dominant in their own division last year. They were 25-1 against teams in their own division. The only team that they didn't have great success with against the Dallas Stars. So you take Dallas out of it, they were 22-1 against Arizona, who's now Utah, Colorado, Chicago, Minnesota, Nashville, and St. Louis. They own St. Louis in the regular season. 2-2 with Nashville. That's always a tough one. Chicago, they beat them all. There was one game that ended up in a shootout loss. And Colorado, they absolutely own too. So if the Jets can figure out a way to beat other teams that not in their division, they're going to have great success. But in their own division, 25-1. That's fantastic.
Yeah, but David, playing under Rick Bowness last year, he was with the club, took some personal leave. He was back at the end of the year. Is that an anomaly? How does a stat like that fall into place? It almost defies logic.
The Jets had a great coach, and everybody knows that Paul Maurice is a great coach. And Paul Maurice basically reached the end of his rope. He just went to the management and said, I can't do anything more with this team. I don't know what to do. And the management said, hey, just keep doing what you're doing. And he goes, and Paul Maurice, being a proud man, said, no, I got to step aside. They had Dave Lowry for the rest of that season. And then they basically talked Rick Bowness out of he lives on the east coast of Canada. Him and his wife were basically sitting on the deck one day, and this is what the rest of our life's going to be now that I'm retired. And the next morning, according to legend, the phone rings, and it's the Winnipeg Jets ownership group with Mark Chipman saying, "Hey, listen, we need you out here in Winnipeg." And Rick Bowness, former player, former coach in Winnipeg years and years and years ago, said to his wife, "What do you think?" And she goes, "I like Winnipeg." And boom, they're off. And health challenges for both him and his wife, and 2 good years, exciting Jets hockey, basically righted the ship, made some, him and Kevin Cheveldayoff had to make some tough decisions, bought out some contracts, let some guys go, and now handing the reins to former Columbus coach Scott Arniel, an ex-Winnipeg Jet. The guy has been around the Manitoba Moose and Winnipeg Jets organization for years and years. And the succession planning is great. And I think that we're going to see, we saw the team never missed a beat. There was 2 separate incidents where Rick Bowness had his own health and his own wife's health to take care of. And Scott Arniel stepped in, and the team was absolutely seamless. So there's that. And I think that we're going to see, some of the younger guys, some of the defense, that might be the only weakest link with some of the guys taking off, signing deals other places. But, this is the Jets as a team that always had a strong farm system and, didn't make a lot of splashy moves in the offseason. And we're going to see what happens. We're going to see a team that's, like we've talked about before with, it's a different sport, but Minnesota Twins. I mean, you just basically draft, recruit, develop, and everybody comes up into your system. It's something that teams like in the 70s, the Montreal Canadiens did. They had their own thing. They had their own, junior squads. They had the farm teams, and it was always a strong competitive team. But once you start to become a bit of a mad scientist sometimes and tinker with free agents and throw different guys into the mix, and unless it's a superstar, that's gonna really make a difference, you just gotta stay the course.
One thing that the San Francisco Giants, near and dear to my heart, a lot of our viewers, one thing that they have in common with your situation, for example, in Winnipeg, a completely different team, is I find that they far too often, they keep going to the well within the same organization. What are your thoughts about that? Are you a guy who says, go out as an owner and get me the best man for the job? Or do you like to keep it? You mentioned Scotty Arniel. He was a former player, coached a little bit, was in the Moose system down in the American Hockey League. So do you like the fact that a team brings in kind of an old guard, renew them with the organization? Are you all about getting the best man for the job?
If your team is a dumpster fire and you've had no success and you've had it, then you go out and definitely try to find the best person for the job. But if you've been, just knocking on the door and getting close or having some success, I think you always look within. I think that, looking at Fortune 500 companies and major corporations, I mean, there's some great examples of the world when, Pepsi hires a new guy or, we watch, if you watch on one of those brands that built America, look what happened to Apple when they decided to bring somebody in from the outside. That didn't work. But you look at when Pepsi brought somebody in from the outside, and they all of a sudden they were competitive with Coke. So two different examples. One a disaster, one a good move. But it's like that in sports. Unless you're gonna see some great things. Like you watch for years that Chicago organization until the scandalous thing and Bowman had to get rid of him and had to make some big changes. They were on a really good course of developing front office talent and bringing them to the forefront. And look at the Edmonton Oilers, a team that is always just kind of getting close, but they're always shuffling guys and different general managers. And last year the coaching change that made a big difference and led them close, real close to the Stanley Cup, game 7 away. But I mean, it's in the history of the Edmonton Oilers, they just haven't been able to get there for years and years and years. The first Stanley Cup appearance, and we're talking about the glory years back in the 80s and early 90s when they were good, because you had Glenn Sather, you had a good organization, you had everybody in there that guys who just did their jobs and did it. But when you start tinkering, and it has to be the absolute best guy.
All righty. And I'm not, throwing Scott Arniel under the bus or anything. He has had success and within the organization, but that was just a general question because during Shark Bites, our debut program talking about the Sharks and the NHL yesterday, one of our my viewers, Mark Graves, he says, hey, what about the Edmonton Oilers? What about their superstar? When's he turned to a free agent? I said, I don't think either. I think he'll be a lifelong Edmonton Oiler. Talking about Connor McDavid. What are your thoughts on that, Dave? You think Mark's talking out of his backside, or Do you think you could see a superstar player? You know, we did see Wayne Gretzky traded. So what do you think of a guy like that? And I think Mark was leaning toward the frustration level more than anything else. I think Mark's a bit of an Edmonton fan. I know he's a hockey fan, but he didn't look happy at the end of the postseason, of course, losing to Florida. So what do you think about a situation like that?
Guy's still on the Conn Smythe, right? So, I mean, he was the most valuable player to his team. I believe his contract status is he's got 2 years left. So he's got this one and then goes into that final year of his contract next year. And I know there was some talk and he says, I'm just here to play hockey. I'm not going to be worrying about that stuff.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I mean, look at a guy like Sidney Crosby, who just re-upped with the Pittsburgh Penguins. There's a guy that, has had success and has had some dismal seasons, not personally, but, the team's had some dismal seasons and he's just stuck it out. It depends.
There's one difference, though. One difference, Dave.
Stanley Cups.
He's skated around with the Stanley Cup. McDavid hasn't. So what do you think the importance of winning it? I know Eric and I have talked about this a lot in baseball in our Giants talk. Where do you see the balance between a player like Juan Soto? Everybody wants to see him sign with the San Francisco Giants. San Francisco Giants have the Brinks truck backed up. They got the money. They have it. They can spend it. They got lots of it. What do you think a guy who hasn't won before? Now, Soto's won a ring, but we're talking about McDavid. A guy, do you go for the money? Show me the money. Or do you want to win at all costs?
Well, you have to go back to hockey with Ray Bourque. Like Ray Bourque said, listen, I want to win a cup. And I think the Boston organization looked over their shoulders and said, well, I ain't going to win it here. So Ray Bourque went over to Colorado and won a Stanley Cup. When you're that close,
they picked up a lot of great players that.
Yeah, it was a good move for Ray Bourque, but I think today's athletes are a little bit different. I think that they're a little bit more Bernie Mac and Mr. 3000, a little bit more in it for themselves. Yeah. And championships are nice, but I think most of them want to make that big deal, and they want to make the money where they can, because as much as some of the money is absolutely ridiculous, in sports it could be all over during your next game. Something could happen. So you have to if you have that value and you have that, it's up to you to get to squeeze as much money as you possibly can, as long as the teams can afford it. Now, unfortunately, and you and I have bought tickets to every sporting event we've ever been to, the fan loses out on that, because you and I remember I got ticket stubs in my drawer from when I went to games, and games were $9. Now you can't get a beer for $9. So it's, I don't know. Like, I just, it's a much changed world out there. When Hollywood actors are getting, $50 million for a picture, and they get a cut of the profits, and we all know that not many people are going to theaters anymore. So, sports might have to have a reset someday, because it's just too darn expensive. Everybody, you don't, National Hockey League, you don't see the sellouts. I mean, it's September, and the teams that are close, even in making the playoffs, are close. You see the Monday games, the Tuesday games with the empty seats, and see what happened to the Chicago White Sox with some of their attendance this year. So we might have to see a reset, Glenn.
Yeah, I have to agree, and that is fodder for another show. Great topic. We've got training camps getting underway Thursday, hockey media day for a lot of teams tomorrow. So we'll be kind of laying a little more hockey on you as the weeks go, and we're looking forward to the San Jose Sharks. I'm really looking forward to some of the young guys. They've got Quentin Musty had the hat trick in the juniors game. Macklin Celebrini appears to be the real deal, playing for Boston University. 32 goals, 32 assists in 38 games last year. Will Smith, I'm not talking Hollywood, the center iceman at a Boston College, and Luca Cagnani, who's from Burnaby, played for the Portland Winterhawks. He's another good one. 18 goals, 72 assists, and 90 points last year. A junior, big defenseman. Let's see. Before we wrap it up, off the top, should have mentioned we were talking football, and we did recap the score on Sunday. 49ers, they lose. You say, don't run naked in the streets. It's okay. Niners will bounce back. But 49ers, Deebo Samuel will miss a couple of weeks with a calf strain. That announcement came down the pipe yesterday. So hopefully he will be back in the lineup real soon. And
what a talent that guy is. And we talked about this yesterday. If you haven't gone to Netflix and watched Receivers, that they have him and they feature him and George Kittle from the 49ers. It's absolutely fascinating to watch them go through their entire season last year, and just two quality individuals.
Coming up after 5:30 tonight, opening pitch 5:35, you've got the Baltimore Orioles taking on the San Francisco Giants. That game will be at Oracle Park, better known as Camden Yards. Giants 72-78 Baltimore. They're looking good heading to the postseason, 84-66. Albert Suarez is 8-5 for Baltimore and getting the nod. Guy who he's been fantastic. Basically lights out. Had a no-hitter. Blake Snell. Great pitcher. Bad
name.
Good show. Jock and the Doc. And again last night, the stunner Atlanta Falcons late fourth quarter win 22-21 over the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's talk some sports again tomorrow morning. We'll be talking about in depth about that Giants game with Baltimore, and we'll throw a few more topics out at you, Dave, as well. His name is Dave Patrician. I'm Glenn. We wrap it up. Jock and the Doc Morning Show. Have a great day, Doc, and we'll see you bright and early tomorrow.
Right on.
You've been watching the Northern California Sports and Entertainment Network, a Northern Lights Entertainment broadcasting station.